Trouble ahead, trouble behind. And you know that notion just crossed my mind. This old engine makes it on time. Leave Central Station about 8:45. Hits River Junction at 72 at 9:45. You know we're driving again. Driving that train. Hi, Cameron.
Darius, that's awesome, buddy. I love that.
Oh man, you like the Dead, don't you? I remember you
I
were.
love the Dead, and I'm actually talking to you today from Vancouver, Canada. And the reason I moved to Vancouver back in 1994 was I came out to Vancouver the summer of '92, I think it was, to see the Dead play down at the Gorge, and Jerry was sick, so they canceled the show. And my sister and I borrowed a friend's car and drove up to Whistler and drove around Vancouver, and I fell in love and moved here.
Oh, man. Well, I love that story, and I want to just get us started here. Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Mirshahzadeh, and I just got to say this, I'm at a loss for words right now. I got Cameron Herold on the show, my man, the legend, in the flesh, here to talk about some amazing things that's going on in the world, and I'm very grateful to have you, Cameron. Seriously,
I love you, man. You're a good guy.
Thank you,
for a long time.
Thank you. Yeah, very much so. And I feel exactly the same way. So, guys, the format of the show is simple. We're bringing together change makers from across the world who are living their passions to create greatness in the world. And Cameron is I mean, dude, you're the man, dude. And you are creating a lot of greatness, and you've been an inspiration for me. And I will say this, selfishly, one of the reasons I love doing this show is I get an excuse to bring my friends and mentors and people that I really respect on, and I get to just spend some time with you to really learn about things that you're doing. So thank you so much for this today, man.
Of course, you're welcome. Happy to.
Guys, a couple of things to know about live streaming. First of all, we're live. Start a watch party if you're on Facebook. Ask us questions. I got my team on standby. They'll be shooting questions our way. Like I said, we have a really special guest. We're so lucky to have Cameron here with us today. I like to not do the formal bio, so I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of background on my experience with Cameron. So Cameron and I actually met June of 2007 at MIT, where he proceeded to blow everyone's mind with his work around vivid vision. And he is an acclaimed speaker, multiple-time best-selling author, podcaster, and as known as the CEO Whisperer. He's the founder of the COO Alliance, which is the premier association for second-in-commands in the entire world. And he's made a name for himself with high-growth entrepreneurs from all over the world. We're blessed to have this legend on the show, and I'm so happy to have you sharing your work, man.
Darius is amazing. And by the way, you were a part of what I think is the best class to come out of the EMP program. It used to be called Birthing a Giants, now called the Entrepreneurial Masters program. Brian Bro was your facilitator, right?
Jeff Calababa.
Jeff Calababa. Sorry.
It was Vern, and then Vern, halfway through, Jeff came in.
Got it. Yep. You were part of a different class. So you weren't the best class. You're a damn good one, though.
Oh, no. We had Andy Bailey, John Ratliff, Ken Sim.
No, you guys had a really great class. I remember where you were sitting. I remember where Andy Bailey was sitting, right by the rail. Ken Sim was one of my first coaching clients. And you guys had a really, really good class.
Yeah, it was an experience, and for me, it planted the seeds for what became really my life's work at this point, which was, building companies and doing it with the use of core values. And now I have the book coming out. So, but what I want to say is, we met there. You came back for my year 3, actually. And then we connected a bit after that, but you're the person that introduced me to TED, and really got me in that world. And that was very, very, that's so formative to me that I based this show off of how I produced my TEDx talk, my TEDx program. Thank
you. Yeah. And not only did we talk about it at TED, but you've been to the main TED, the TED Active. I think we connected out one year. That it's an amazing organization.
Yeah, it's a really special thing. And it's inspired me to change a lot of things in my life for the better. And anyway, you were the bridge for that for me. So like I said, one of the coolest things for me is to be able to get to spend times with friends. And when I came up with the idea for the show about 2 years ago, I said, the greatness machine is all around people who have lived their passions to create greatness. And it's hard to do that. A lot of people like to be asleep at the wheel or get focused on something that's more traditional. And then there's people out there that are change makers that are always pushing themselves. And I really respect you and consider that you're one of those people. So I'm really grateful to have you here, man.
You know where it came from for me is, this is going to go back way before. So one of the top 3 TED Talks of all time was Simon Sinek. Mm-hmm. And what a lot of people don't know is Simon flew out to Vancouver to meet me in 2003, 5 years before his famous TED Talk. And he came out to find out if Brian and I were real because he read about us in Fortune magazine. And Simon came out and we spent a full day together, and he was drawing his ideas for what became 4.5, 5 years later, the book Start With Why. Simon was on our board of directors at 1-800-GOT-JUNK for 1.5 years, spoke at our conference, helped us with our marketing way before anyone had ever heard of him. In fact, I was trying to get Simon a speakers bureau to cover him, and they wouldn't talk to him because he didn't have a book. They magically missed out on an amazing speaker, an amazing business mind. But I got exposed to this whole concept of your why, your core purpose, and really understanding your why. And what I've always really loved to do is help entrepreneurs make their dreams happen. And I learned that at College Pro Painters when I was coaching franchisees, and then building all the companies I've built as a second in command. And then in coaching CEOs, everything I do is consistent with my why. So I think that's what helps me live my greatness, is just understanding why I get up in the morning.
And so a lot of our audience are entrepreneurs, and you're in their world, and obviously in the entrepreneurial world, you're a known entity and then some. For those that are not entrepreneurs and that this is their first time meeting you, do you mind maybe giving a little bit of background on, because I got to the Vivid Vision and I mentioned that, but do you mind giving a little bit of background on your entrepreneurial experience, how you got into what you're now into, but maybe a little bit of backstory there?
Yeah, I was groomed as an entrepreneur. My dad raised my brother, my sister, and myself all to be entrepreneurs. In fact, today we've all run our own companies for between 15 and 25 years. So all I've ever really known was being an entrepreneur. When I was 21, I had 12 full-time employees in my company. I was running a business when I was in second year university. I ran a business for 3 years and then when I graduated school, I had no debt. I bought a house and I started coaching entrepreneurs. So I actually started coaching entrepreneurs in 1989. Before coaching was a thing, I was coaching entrepreneurs. I was with an organization called College Pro Painters, where we had 800 franchisees every year that we had to coach and train and hire and recruit. 1993, I recruited Kimball Musk, who is Elon's brother, to be a franchisee for me, and also his cousin, Peter Reeve, who built Solar City. They both worked for me back in 93. I ended up being a reference for Elon in January of 95 for his first company, Zip2. I was a reference for their funding round when they only had one employee.
No way.
Then I went on and I co-founded a chain of auto body collision repair shops. In Canada, it's known as Boyd Auto Body. In the US, it's known as Gerber Auto Collision. We built that up to be now the world's largest collision repair chain. I left there after about 4.5 years, and I was hired as the president of a private currency company. It was called ubarter.com. Similar to what Bitcoin is doing today. We were doing it in 1998 through 2000. We sold the company in 2000 for $64 million. And then I left and became the second in command of a small garbage company. It was called the Rubbish Boys. They had just changed the name over to 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And I came in as the 14th employee. I came in as the chief operating officer. And when I left 6.5 years later, we had 3,100 employees system-wide. We'd ranked as the #2 company in Canada to work for. We were operating in 330 cities, 4 countries. We had no debt. We had given up no equity. And we generated 5,200 stories about our company in the media. And this was prior to social media even existing. So we took that company from 2 million to 106 million. I left there 13 years ago and started coaching entrepreneurs. My dad called me semi-retarded because I was I didn't really want to grow an operational company. I just wanted to kick back, and I started coaching entrepreneurs. Some of the ones you know, Razor Suleiman, who was in your class for a while, and then Ken Sim, who built Nurse Next Door. Razor sold his company, by the way, for over 100 million as well.
Right.
So coached a lot of really good, successful companies. And I've coached CEOs now in 20 plus countries. I've done paid speaking events in 26 countries on 6 continents. I've written 5 books. And about 3.5 years ago, I started the only network of its kind in the world for second in commands called the COO Alliance. And I have a podcast called the Second in Command Podcast. So that's my bio, I guess.
Yeah. So it was funny when I was, especially with friends like you that have accomplished a lot. I like to kind of like, I've seen it as it's happened. Right. I realized, and one thing I realized in reading, like doing some research before the show, I'm like, oh shit, man. Like I met you a month after you left 1-800 Got Junk. Cause that was June of 06, of 07, excuse me. And I didn't realize that then that you had that was not something that was like on my radar. I knew you'd been there. I didn't realize it was that like early.
Well, here, let me give you another part that you might not even know. I was fired from 1-800 Got Junk.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Brian, my best friend, still one of my closest friends. We hang out all the time. It took us a couple of years to get through it all, but I was the guy to take them from 2 million to 100 million, but I wasn't going to be the person to take them from 100 million to the billion. So he knew that it was the time that I had to be replaced. We'd finished replacing the rest of the leadership team. Now it was my turn. And that was one of the hardest things for him to ever do and for me. But 2 days later, I was speaking at an event on his behalf that he couldn't go to. And then a week later, I was speaking at the EO Global event about 1-800 Got Junk. So here I am being let go from the company that I'd helped build, and I'm still out there as the brand ambassador. And 13 years later, I'm still out there trumpeting it, and I'm written all over his book. And yeah, there's more to the story.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because like it was such a big success, and for you to do that just says a lot about yourself, right? And this is a values statement more than anything, man. Like that's a core values play that like you knew what you were good at and what you wanted to do, and then you took that and created so much. I mean, dude, you're ridiculous, dude. Like you kind of are, like you really are, because you've created so much after that, and the way you've done it's just been so impressive. And anyway, I appreciate you giving that background. So I have a question for you because of your exposure to the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and because of your exposure both from a visionary and from an operational standpoint, and the fact that you specialize in working with number twos, but you do it in this visionary way. When you're looking at what's happening right now in the marketplace, in the environment, with all these businesses, with your clients, with your people you're mentoring and coaching, what are you seeing? Like what's front and center for you?
I think the big thing that's front and center is that the companies that are doing really well are the ones that are led by leaders that are leading, and that aren't worried about what's happening. They're focused on a vision. They're driving towards goals. They're energizing the team. They're praising people. They're creating momentum. And the ones that are struggling are the ones that are stuck, staring at social media, worried about fear. They're paralyzed by fear instead of deciding that it's going to be different. What is it? Fear is the acronym for false evidence appearing real, or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's what I'm noticing is the real good leaders are leading, and in every time. And in fact, my first book, Double, I talked in one of the chapters about how to grow when it's slow. And that was one of the things I talked about was in times of distress or economic downturn or, issues like a pandemic, leaders have to lead because the followers are dying to follow someone. They're scared.
So what I would ask you, and we talked a little bit when we caught up like a month or two ago, and when I think of your work around vivid vision, and it's so funny, like because of my introduction to a lot of the different work, like you met Simon in 2003, I met him in 2008 or 9. And I met you in 2007, and you were doing the Vivid Vision work then. And so, and I'm pretty steeped in the entrepreneurial community. So people are always like, have you ever heard of this book called Vivid Vision? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I think I've heard of it. Like, hey, Darius, do you know this thing? Like, there's this thing I learned at our EO chapter. There's a guy named Cameron Herold. I'm like, yeah, I know Cameron. Like, you come up to me probably, and it's funny, like, because you're so like entrenched in the community, I don't know if someone comes up more than you do, honestly.
Wow.
And so like, I don't know if anyone's ever told you that, but I'm telling you that right now. You come up all the time from many, many different directions. And so
I'd love to know the bad ones.
No, they're always good, man. They're always they're always good and they're always like meaningful. And it's a testament to the work you're doing. So my question for you is, when you look at, how did you come upon the Vivid Vision work? Because obviously you worked with Simon. His thing was more of a marketing approach to connecting at a higher level. You guys did this at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Do you mind kind of digging into that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, we did it before 1-800-GOT-JUNK. We did it when Brian's company was called the Rubbish Boys. My company was ubarter.com. And another friend of ours, Dan, had a company called PadTech. 120 entrepreneurs from the EO chapter in Vancouver, which was my first mastermind group that I ever joined, was the EO. It was called YEO back in the day, the Young Entrepreneurs Organization. Yep. And it was a network of entrepreneurs that owned companies doing greater than $1 million in revenue. We had a monthly lunch event where they were bringing in a speaker who was going to talk about sports psychologists and how high performance athletes utilized vision. 16 of the 120 went to the lunch. 120 people, 16 of us went, 104 were too busy, I guess. And we went and we learned how athletes utilized vision at the highest level to accelerate their performance. And the professor was teaching us how, if athletes could do it, how could we take that into the business world? How could we get the vision in our mind and communicate it to employees? So he gave us the idea. We went back to my office later that week, Brian, myself, and Dan, and we each worked on what we were calling our painted pictures at the time, now called the Vivid Vision. Brian was writing one for 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I was writing one for the Barter Company, which we sold 2 years later. And Dan was working on one for PadTech that he still runs today. So that's where we learned the idea. And then over the years, we started communicating it mostly at EO chapters and groups we were asked to speak at. Because our growth was happening and we were getting all this press, we ranked as the #1 company in British Columbia 2 years in a row, and then #2 in Canada. People wanted to know how we did it. And we just talked about how we did it. And it was around vision and people and meeting and strategy. And we taught the systems, and then it just took off. And then, so that's where we learned it.
Now, so when you look at, and this came up most recently for me, because I don't know if I mentioned it, I had stepped down as CEO of my company back in November. And I was on a podcast earlier today, and they said, I think the question was something around like, what's the biggest, regret or toughest thing you ever did? I said, stepping away as CEO of my company was really tough. And the reason I did was because I had come to the realization that the life I was living, this great company, I'm very proud of what I built there and what it continues to be built there. It's a blueprint for a core value driven organization, like through and through. But my personal core values were not aligned with what I had been doing for many, many years. And I just felt like I needed to move in a different direction. And to come to that realization was super hard. And then the aftermath was when your identity's tied to being in these high profile roles and all the, I don't want to say accolades, but all the, like when you're an achiever and you're doing, like when you were, 1-800-GOT-JUNK and you guys had built that, dude, there's a lot of identity, I'm assuming, that got tied to that you had done that and that you were the guy, you and Brian.
There was so much identity tied to it that I refused to ever have it happen again. So I refused to ever actually let my identity become trapped and wrapped up in a brand. And the reason for that was I just wanted to be me. So that's why I never decided to join a coaching group. I just wanted to be Cameron. And that's why, I will never be a part of, because I was a part of too many. I helped create it, but we created a cult, right? And it was by design. I wanted something more than a business and a little bit less than a religion. Right. You have to get in that zone of a cult. So once you're out of the cult and you look back in, you're like, it's glad to be gone, right? I don't. It's also really affected me that I'll never work overtime anymore. Like I'm done every day at 5 o'clock.
Yeah. And to have those boundaries, I think says a lot about, what you learned and where you moved on from there. And so the reason I appreciate that, because I feel like there's a lot of similarity for me. And so I have an accountability partner who's a very, 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 he's one of the most successful people I know. And through the years, I've met some really successful people, and he brought up your book. He's like, have you done your vision? Have you done your Vivid Vision, Darius? And I said, I'm going to, but I personally, I haven't done it because I'm digesting things right now. And I said, I'm really trying to get clear on my personal values, because I feel like that's where I went wrong. And I don't feel like it's fair for me to create a vision until I'm really clear on my values, because I don't want to like create a vision based off of achieving, for instance, right? Because I'm a glutton for achievement, but that doesn't necessarily align with my values all the time. And so my question for you is, and this is me being a little self-indulgent, is because I wrote my book on how to, and you had said this and I've been using this. I said, Cameron said I decoded the core values. So if you said it, it's real. But I'm proud of that. Right. And so my question for you is, when you look at the work, or when you look at businesses doing that, I think it's easier to do it for a business than it is to do it for yourself, because there's way more like risk for myself. Right. If I get it wrong in the business, like, life goes on. If I get it wrong for myself, I got to live with myself.
Well, there's not only that, but I think when you establish your core values and you roll out your vivid vision for yourself to people, you're the only one to blame when it doesn't happen. You're the only one to blame for breaking it. Like you're very accountable. But I'll tell you, in the business world, when you want to grow a really great company like a 1-800-GOT-JUNK or like a Tesla, you really, really, really have to obsess about them as if everything depends on it. So
without question, right?
Yeah, like my core values for my company are pretty similar to what I think my core values would be for me. You know, deliver what you promise is my first one. That's easy. Be open and vulnerable. That's all. Like that's pretty easy. Show respect for everyone. That's easy. Grow big, act small. That's just my small town values that I'm never going to let go of. And then have some effing fun. And the only reason I said effing fun was a couple of my people said I couldn't say have some fucking fun.
I like fucking fun better, but
like so those are pretty consistent with who I am, right? So I don't think it's that hard to put them out there. I think it's harder to, most people don't want to do the work of go, what do I stand for? What do I really believe in?
And so do you think that that's because it's easier to be asleep?
I think most people don't even think about it. You know, remember that we're operating in a group of people that are already super high performers. You know, I don't know what the exact number is, but only 3% of companies are ever do more than $1 million in revenue, right? Let alone 100 million in revenue, let alone rank as one of the best companies to work for, let alone have net promoter scores of positive 90. Like we're operating at such a high level. I'm in 4 mastermind groups, and people used to talk about the TED conference of being expensive. It's the least expensive of the 4 mastermind groups I'm in.
Wow.
The main TED conference is less than the Genius Network, less than War Room, less than Baby Bathwater, with less than strategic coaching, with less than mastermind talks. I got 6 different mastermind groups I was in, some for 5 years.
Yeah.
And so when our peer group is operating at that high of a level, I don't think it's hard for us to put core values in place and live them. I think the average person doesn't even know what core values are. Like when you go out and look outside at the average person living out there, it's a quantum leap for them to even think about that.
So I think that makes an amazing point, and you take for granted what you get used to, right? And sometimes, and obviously you have a higher awareness of this than I maybe do, but I just take it for granted. I'm like, well, yeah, of course you got to know your core values. Like, how else do you make decisions? But to your point, like the average Joe is not doing that, and I think that's just going back to what you said earlier in the conversation. I think that speaks to the power of leadership. Right.
Well, it's funny. The guy Kawasaki asked me, he said, why is it that every company you coach turned to gold? And I said, I only touch gold. Like, I don't coach crappy companies, right? Like even when you were in the EMP program, I don't know what it was, but there were probably something like 8,000 EO members globally, and 65 were selected to be in that program. 65 a year out of 8,000, you're operating above the top 1% line.
Right.
So it's kind of no surprise, right, that you would know this stuff. But the average, you know, the 8,000 EO members would be exposed to it, but they're in the top 1% in the global businesses. You drop down a level to the average company in Austin or San Francisco or St. Louis, they don't know this shit. They've never heard of Simon Sinek. They don't know of TED. I'm amazed still at the amount of people that don't, because they're so trapped in either being busy or raising their kids or watching the NFL game they're watching, and you know.
So let me ask you a question, because this is, I think this is where I've been struggling a lot over the last probably couple of years, but especially now in the United States, at least. And right now, I think that there's a leadership crisis in the world.
Massive.
Okay. And so, and I think that, and what I've been saying to people is I believe the answer to this is what I'm saying unapologetically is I believe mission, vision, and value-based organizations will be the leaders of the next 10 years in every single industry that there is. And I believe that that it is necessary for that to happen so that entrepreneurship can become the model for change at the governmental levels. This is my belief.
Yeah, I think something is going to happen at the governmental levels because it just can't keep happening as it is today. And I think I think social media is actually going to become our social consciousness, that social media is going to allow the truth and allow a bit of an uprising to demand change. And we can't let government be run by bureaucrats anymore. Like there's just too much waste and too many problems. Like as much as, and I'll go on the record of saying this, I don't like Donald Trump as a human being. I don't like him as a person. I think I don't like how much he lies. Anyway, whatever. But I'll tell you, I certainly like a lot of the crap and waste he's trying to get rid of. I like a lot of how fast he's able to get some people moving. And I'm very impressed with a lot of the change that I wish he would do it in a nicer way. I wish he would be a nicer person. But I'll tell you, if we could have more change like he's doing with the right core values underpinning it, boy, we could have some stuff happening.
Yeah, because he's not respecting the old guard ways, right? And I'd say that too. I go, look, like there's some stuff he does that I hate and some stuff he does that I like, but I could probably say that about any politician. My issue with him is that I believe leadership starts from the top, and I don't agree with his values. Therefore, there's no matter what, I can't support a leader whose values I don't align with.
Right. I could never let anyone work inside my company who treats people the way he treats, or like, you just don't call people names. Like we learned that in grade school. And Here we have one of the leaders of one of the leading country in the free world, and he calls everybody that he doesn't like by some degrading name. It's not cool. Anyway.
Yeah, it's real simple. Leadership starts from the top, right? So when you look at these, and you picking
one of my core values is show respect for everyone. That breaks one of my core values.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, mine is my number one core value is, I call it, it's heart, which is happiness. And my second one is love. And I call it Bezos. And I'm like, look, man, like that's not love. That's not. And my third is Eye of the Tiger, which is what do we do to protect those that need protection, right? Are we stepping up to actually be the voice of the little guy that can't protect himself? Because I don't like bullies. A bully needs to get punched in the mouth. So when I see someone bullying, I'm like, my natural instincts, and have always been, is I'm like, I'm going to punch that guy in the mouth. Like, and so when I see this guy bullying, I go, look, everything in my body is like, I'm going to sock him in the mouth. I told somebody on the podcast, I said, if I was standing in front of him, he's an older guy, and he started talking shit to me, I'd be like, let's just take this outside, man. I'd take it outside with Donald Trump, and I would be unapologetic about beating his ass. But that's just a core value thing for me. I'm just staying true to my core values, Cameron.
We may want to rework that one.
But no, my question for you is, you're getting to work with some of these amazing leaders and in these amazing companies. And right now we have a leadership crisis governmentally in many, many places in the world. Right now we have a real health crisis. And when you see these things and you see that there are some people leading, I guess my question for you is, what can those do to emulate the ones that are leading? What are some ways that you see that there is a fix here?
I don't. My world is obsessing about great entrepreneurs and great entrepreneurial companies. In the vacuum of everything else that's happening, I just can't worry about it all. So I don't know. I would never, like the biggest company that I've ever coached at the leadership team level, I coached the CEO and the second in command of Sprint for 18 months. They're the 82nd largest company in the US, and I was coaching them. I was out of my sandbox. So my world is the entrepreneurial company. So I can't talk about how we can emulate leaders or how those leaders can change. I can talk about how you can build fantastic company cultures, and that's my zone.
And so, no, I appreciate that. And so going back in that direction, then with the stuff you've been working on, you've published, what is it, 4 books now, 3 books?
5.
5 books. I was off by one. I think I've bought 3 of them.
My co-author of the Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs is based in Austin, Hal Elrod.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm going to be on his show. Yeah. No.
We co-authored the Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs together 2 years ago.
No way, man. That dude, I don't know how he's a friend of a few friends, right? Obviously, John Rulin and
I was talking to John yesterday. He almost stayed at my house for the next 4 days.
Yeah, he's such a good dude. He introduced me to my book launch director. Do you know Amber Vilhauer?
No.
Oh man, you got to connect with her. I'll make the intro. She's amazing, but she knows how. He's a client of hers. So yeah, he comes up a lot right now, and that guy's doing really well. And so going back to what I was saying before is, here you are putting all this great work into the world. You've had 5 books. Like, what's next for you? What's next on your conquering list?
It's funny. I think back to your question about like, why are most people not kind of heart-centered or following core values? If they would read the Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs and follow the systems that we put in there, they would wake up differently and start their day differently and be focused with intention and gratitude and visualizations. Like, there's so many good things in those books that I could be powerful. So what was your question?
No, my question was, like, with all the amazing work you're putting out in the world, what's the next big thing for you?
Well, the current focus is the COO Alliance, right? So I'm growing this network for the second in command, because there's so many great groups for entrepreneurs, and there were groups for marketers and engineers and lawyers, but there was never a place for the COO. So we have the COO Alliance. I have my podcast, the Second in Command podcast, and that's where we only interview the second in command. We won't interview the CEO. So I had Hal's assistant on the podcast. I had the second in command of Bumble, second in command of 15Five and of Tiny Pulse and of the Cleveland Indians. So of all these great brands, Shopify. So cool kind of getting behind the scenes with them. I have 2 more books that I'm working in the rough kind of content of right now. One is on the highs and lows of CEOs. And it's just about why we're bipolar as entrepreneurs and how to ride that bipolar wave more successfully. And then the second is around the 2-in-a-box model of the CEO-COO relationship, where we really have that pure partnership with the CEO, COO, and how to leverage off of that role. So working on those.
Now, let me ask you on that second one. I actually, the first one, I think that's a talk you do too, right?
It's a talk. Yeah. The highs and lows of CEOs is a talk that I do. Tim Ferriss published it on his blog 10 years ago. He really loved it and wrote all my content on there and talked about me on there and everything. So yeah, that's been something I've talked about for years. I've had a number of entrepreneurs, after either reading that chapter in Double Double or hearing me speak at an event on it, have said that I've saved their life. I had a guy walk up to me who was running a $50 million company, $5 million a year in profit, happily married, 3 kids, healthy, involved in his church. And he came up to me and he said, "You've saved my life. For the last 6 months, I've been suicidal. I thought I was going crazy, and now I realize I'm just an entrepreneur."
Wow.
And he was sobbing, shaking on my shoulder, standing right by the door at Endicott House at EMP, where we did that MIT program together. Like, he was standing at the door, shaking on my shoulder.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, man. This shit's real. So there's the problem for entrepreneurs is that we are very alone in our fear, in our insecurities, in our vulnerabilities, in our stress, in the fact that we've mortgaged everything, in the fact that we've just recruited somebody to join our team, even though if we're not sure if we're going to make it happen. Like, we're always kind of on that lunatic fringe. And people will be like, "Oh, I've got highs and lows too." Yeah, but you don't have your house mortgaged, and you didn't just hire somebody away from a company and not sure if you're going to be successful. And you're getting paid every week. I haven't drawn a salary in 3 months or paid, like we're just under a magnified amount of pressure. And we can't talk to a lot of people about it. The entrepreneur can't go tell his employees they're scared. And you can't go tell your accountant friend or your teacher friends because they don't really understand. So I talk about that cycle that we go through and how to navigate that cycle successfully.
So let me ask you a question, because I think that there's something around, like, especially with entrepreneurs, I do think that there's I won't say chip on an entrepreneur's shoulder, but I do think that there's something around proving that you're good enough. And entrepreneurism gives you this tool, and a lot of it comes from achiever mentality, right? So a lot of entrepreneurs I know they were athletes, or they were doing, they're drawn towards sales jobs, things where you get like that endorphin shot in the arm that says, I'm good, I'm the best, right? And so is there something around potentially what you're talking about, maybe around self-aggression that like, because I'll tell you, coming from my position, I'm the biggest asshole in the world to me. I'm not fucking good enough. I better do more. I better build a bigger business. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot there. And I'll give you an interesting data point that the medical community has nicknamed bipolar disorder as the CEO disease.
Really?
So most entrepreneurial CEOs are on the spectrum for medication for bipolar. And it's because we're hardwired that the energy that we carry is why people will quit their job. It's why they will invest. It's why they will follow us. The stress and depression is simply us being too hard on ourselves and not taking a break and trying to work through it. And we don't understand how to navigate this natural highs and lows. And then it gets magnified because of the scary world we live in by ourselves. So yeah, we are trying to, many entrepreneurs are trying to get that third-party validation, right? It's why they love the press. Look at me, look at me. Well, now what are you doing tomorrow, right? Oh shit, like we were on Oprah, but a week later, nobody cared. It was still had to get back up and keep running the business, right? So yeah, I think that is part of it for sure. And then because you so heavily identify with the brand, anything that goes wrong, anything that you see that's wrong with your company, you take it really personally. Whereas the reality is none of this actually matters. We're all going to die.
Yeah.
Like none of this actually matters.
Yeah, no, I love that because it really sets that priority. I actually think that's one of the reasons why having clarity around values and vision is so meaningful, because you can separate those instances of, and I had a woman by the name of Monique Rhodes. I don't know if you know her. She's this amazing, like she has a business called the 10-Minute Mind. She's a New Zealander, and she was a friend of mine through Stagen. And she said, Darius, we beat ourselves up when we lose, and we celebrate when we win. And equanimity is about doing neither. It's about just being and experiencing. And my mantra that I'm landing on right now, and I actually wanted to kind of get your thoughts on this, is the win is the path, right? Getting to be in the path is the win. And for me, I've said that to myself and been like, and Steven Jagger, right?
Yeah, of course. He lives 10 blocks from me, 9 blocks.
So he was a forum mate of mine for a hot minute, but his brother,
Mike,
the younger one, Kevin.
Yeah.
I know Mike too, but Kevin spoke at my first TEDx event he did when he was trying to become a speed skater, right? And his whole talk was, it's an amazing talk. It's the name of the show that we did at the TEDx Golden Gate Park. The theme was the pursuit of passion. And his talk was called The Passion of Pursuit. And it was all around, like when he said, on my ride over here from SFO to the Young Museum in Golden Gate Park, he said, I had the cab driver ask me what I do for a living. And I said, oh, I'm a speed skater. And the cab driver then said, well, are you an Olympian? And he said, that would be like someone asking me what I did for a living. I said, I'm a real estate agent. And them saying, oh, are you the #1 real estate agent in your country? He said, it's funny that's where we go to with those questions. He said, but I started, and he showed his whole story. He said, I did this because I wanted to enjoy the process of doing it. And not with the expectation of becoming an Olympian. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. And I said, man, so I'm sitting there. This is my show that I'm putting on. I spent a year and a half working to like curate this thing. And I'm like, man, I wish I could enjoy the process for something. And I spent the next 8 years, and I'd spent the previous 12 years not enjoying the process, always wanted that outcome, always wanting to win. And I spent the next 8 years doing it, built an enormous company. And at the end of the day, I realized this is an insatiable appetite. I could be running a $10 billion company and it won't matter. I will want to run a $100 billion company after that.
Yeah, it's a learned wisdom that I think at some point most entrepreneurs learn. Sometimes it's from burnout. I was lucky to burn out, and I got written about burning out in the Wall Street Journal 20 years ago. 20 years ago next month, where I was written up as one of 4 supernovas whose careers went really high and we flamed out with stress. So I was 34 years old, and I was written up as somebody who burned out in their career. But I learned from that. When I met you, I don't know if you remember, but I weighed 37 pounds more than I weigh sitting here right now.
Yeah, no, you're definitely way leaner.
I'll show you a funny photo right now because people will laugh when they see it. But this actually photo was taken. I was with Steve Jagger was standing right beside me when I took this photo, by the way.
Oh, dude, is that where you look? I don't remember you looking like that. Wow.
Yeah, I was 222 pounds, and you look at me today, and I'm not weighing 222 pounds today. I'm weighing 185. I was 184.4 this morning, but at my heaviest, I was 222 pounds. I was standing with Steve Jagger getting that picture at his book launch. So that was like 2007 or 8. I just wasn't a happy dude, and I had to burn out a second time to realize, to really kind of let it sink in that, yeah, this is just the journey. This is just fun. That this isn't what matters, right? What matters, I don't want my kids. So I had this discussion with Dean Graziosi, who's a really famous marketer.
Yeah.
And we were talking about what we want our kids, how we want our kids to describe us. And when I asked Dean this question, he started to cry, and then it got me crying. I said, when your kids describe you to their friends or their friends' parents, when their friends' parents say, "What does your dad do?" How do you want them to describe you? Or how do he goes, well, they describe me as a good marketer, and I'm on the internet, I'm always selling stuff, and I have a big company. And I said, that's what you want your kids to think of you and to remember you by. And he started to cry. I'm like, exactly. Like, I'm the same right now. I didn't want my kids to remember me as a workaholic or somebody who is always working. I want them to describe me as the guy who golfed with them, went hiking with them, made family dinners and sat down with them, finished work at 5 o'clock because I wasn't trying to catch up, because I'm never going to catch up. And I really have started to rethink, like, what's the purpose? And the journey is fun. Like, I enjoy the journey, but, you know, getting every project done isn't the big goal, because I'm just going to add more projects.
Right.
Right.
So when, yeah, man.
So I'm already there. Like, I'm already successful. Everything I do, and I wrote about this in Double Double 10 years ago. Everything I wrote about 10 years ago, I said, everything I do from this point forward is a bonus. I'm already there.
So 10 years from now, you know, what's happening to Cam Herold in his world?
I'm fully retired. I'll be 64. Like, I'm definitely not going to be working. I'll have enough passive income or, you know, investment income that I'm not going to be. I'm going off the grid in about 15 months to start living globally, where I'm going to be living in different cities around the world for 1 to 3 months per city. You know, building out the CEO Alliance, but spending time with friends, traveling the world, living globally. I could read you the list. I've got a list of about 35 cities that I want to live in globally. And tax base probably out of Portugal or Estonia, because I'm Canadian, so I can move out of the US tax grabs.
Yeah. Oh man. When are you doing this? 15 months from now?
September of 2021, because my youngest son goes away to university in September, and my oldest son's already in university. So I don't need to be here. You know, they can come and travel to see me. I can come back to Vancouver once in a while, but I want to, you know, live in Barcelona, live in Amsterdam, live in Paris, live in Buenos Aires, live in Santiago, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Can I don't know if you'd be willing to do this, but will you send a list to your friends like myself and let me know so I can come visit you?
Yeah, well, that's part of the allure, is like, if I'm living globally, I get to hang out with EOers globally. What I'll probably do for that 3 to 5 year period, I'll still be doing my coaching and stuff for the next 5 years and running the CEO Alliance. But my plan is every city that I go to connect with the EO chapter and the YPO chapter, speak, have that money be able to pay for the bills for the month or two that I'm there, and everything else is gravy, right? Everything else just gets put into a pot and builds up as my nest egg.
I love that, man. You just made me smile. I was supposed to be living in Spain right now, but then COVID hit.
Austin's on my list, by the way.
Dude,
like, Austin's one of the cities I want to live in. I know I know the area I want to live in and everything.
Oh, well, when you do it, I can't wait till you're here. We got to hang out. Number one.
Well, I will be living in the big black condo tower on Rainy Street.
Yep.
That's where I'll be living, because I really like that little area, little bars and restaurants, chill there I'll probably be in Austin for, like, I'd say a month, maybe 2 months.
Yeah.
But I have too many friends that I want to spend time with, and it's a really cool, fun area, and I'll be in the same building as Brad Weimart.
Yeah, cool. No, like, and 15 months. All right. 15. That I don't know what month that'll be that you come down here, but
December. Oh, I don't know when Austin will happen, because it'll probably start with Europe first. But yeah, Austin's on the list, man. I'll send you the list.
yeah, I can't wait to see it. Well, last question. We're running, up towards the end of the hour here, but I always like to ask everybody, and this is just my own personal, I don't know, love of knowing this about people. But if you knew it was going to be your last meal on Earth, well, have you ever thought about what that would be? And if you did, what would it be?
So I did just think about it. I have thought about it before, but I just flipped one thing. I would probably make it because I have this recipe from a Canadian, Rob Feeney, who made these braised beef short ribs that after they cook and cool down, then he chops them up and he deglazes a pan and kind of does them with the jus and a little mustard, and they kind of glaze up and caramelize. It's ridiculous. Oh, and I would serve that with this German spätzle and cheese dish that I make that is just ridiculous, and I'd open a good bottle of red wine.
Oh, I love it, man. You just made me.
Do you like to cook?
I love it. I love to cook. Yeah.
I will send you the Rob Feeney recipe for braised beef short ribs. It's about a 4.5 hour from start to finish. Take your time, enjoy the process. You get to chill for 3 hours while it's in the oven. Let me know what you think. I'll send you the recipe right now.
I would love that. Yeah, thank you. I love. What would the red wine be? Do you have a specific red wine?
No, I'm not picky. It would be a Burgundy.
Oh, okay.
All roads lead to Burgundy, right?
So, where can folks find you? Obviously, like a lot of people know where you're at, but just for those that want to learn more about you, what you're up to, where they can find you, where would you like to send them to?
Yeah, well, all of my books, my 5 books, are all available on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. So that's an easy one. And then the CameronHerold.com is where all my information can be found, and the COO Alliance, that website as well.
Great. I'll make sure the team, you guys, we'll put those in the thread. So obviously, if you go to Amazon, there's a ridiculous amount of stuff on there on the book side, and obviously the COO Alliance and CameronHerold.com. So
and definitely the Second in Command podcast is just a really strong. Like the guests that we've had on now amazes me. When I was starting, I was like, God, I hope I can get to 10 episodes. I think we're at 112 today. So
I wanted to talk integrator visionary with you for a little bit, but maybe we'll save that for another time.
All
right. Guys, what a treat, man. I swear this is a guilty pleasure for me to do this show, because I get to talk to amazing folks like Cameron, and this is such a treat to have you on the show, my friend. Seriously, thank you so much.
Thank you, Darius. I really appreciate it. I also grabbed a screenshot of you and I talking to send off to Steve Jagger right now too.
He was on the show a couple of weeks ago. Jeff, do you know Jeff Booth?
Yeah. In fact, last time I talked to Jeff in person was leaving Mike Jagger's birthday party at Steve Jagger's house, and Jeff and I walked up the street together.
No way. So he's going to be on the show, I think, like next week.
Jeff's a wonderful guy. One of the best heart-centered entrepreneurs. A super sad story as well, just on how, it's a whole other story, but how much time and effort and energy he put into building the company and then being removed by the board out of their greed is sad.
I was doing some research on him and saw that because I was like, I know the name of that company. I'm like, oh, it's this Gazelle's case study. I didn't even realize, like, how this goes. I'm like, why does that sound so familiar? I'm like, oh, because he's a scaling up case study. And then how it came up was Steven was like, he's like, you need to like check out this guy's book. He's got this crazy book right now around like what's happening economically and what's happening in the world.
Smart dude. I didn't realize. I listened to Jeff Booth on a podcast, and I didn't realize the level of his intelligence. He's a super smart guy.
Yeah, I went and looked him up after Stephen, and I'm an econ guy, so I was like listening to him, and I was like, wow, I want this guy. I want to talk to him. So he's going to be on the show. I figured you'd know him because you got those are tight circles up in Vancouver that you guys all run in.
Yeah, it's funny that he was literally at Steven's house. I was walking back up the street. So,
well, guys, again, we have all those links. They'll be on the Facebook. And again, thank you so much, Cameron. I love you, man, and I really appreciate you spending time with us. This is really, really warms my heart to have you here.
Darius, thanks for coming or for having me, and I'm super looking forward to your book launching too. So,
yeah, guys, book launch 4 weeks from tomorrow. What I want to say is this: follow us on @TheRealDariusM on Facebook. You can go to catch us on my website at therealdarius.com to follow us on social, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got a big day tomorrow. Peace. We're out of here. Thanks, guys.